What's the hardest would you rather question you've ever been asked? Story 1. When my friend's daughter was 8 or 9, she was obsessed with asking random would you rather type questions from a book she bought. It was a kid's book, so it was nothing nusfw, just random stuff like would you rather eat only pizza or only ice cream, harmless things like that. So one night while I was out to dinner with her and her mother, she asked me, Uncle, scry one, draw one, would you rather be a door or a window? I thought it over for a moment, and for no particular reason said, I guess I'd rather be a window. Without missing a beat, she goes, you seem more like a door to me, then flat refused to explain why. Haunts me to this day. Story 2. I have taught students with both visual impairments and hearing impairments and a few deaf-blind. It's not what you think though, it's usually low vision and hard of hearing. I can say definitively that the world is not made for people who are blind. We love to slap on Braille on things like that solves the problem. Since the majority of people who are blind do not know Braille, and since they would have a hard time getting to the freaking Braille because of lack of public transportation, the Braille often just sits there. Unless you have a very trusted sighted guide spouse, parent, etc., you are vulnerable to abuse. This is not to say that the world is made for the deaf either, but the kids with VI were much more susceptible to being abused simply because they could not identify their attacker, or at least that was the perception of the abuser. Story 3. Verizon's call center hiring process included a questionnaire. Unlike most questionnaires where there is an obvious answer, Verizon had a list of would you rather questions with no discernible upside. Would you rather work longer hours or deal with unruly customers, sort of choices. Anyway, I passed every part of their hiring process except that, which they stated made me immediately ineligible for hire. Because of the questionnaire, I feel like I dodged a bullet though. Edit. Since this blew up, I'm going to add my theory on why they did it like this. I suspect it is a variable answer set depending on what they needed. Management would send HR what they were looking for, and HR would key in the desired responses. Short-staffed? Answer A. Someone who doesn't mind overtime. Getting beat up on call reviews. B. And plan on cutting weak reps once staffing won't be dire afterwards. Story 4. Would you rather be burned to death or drowned? So, I can speak to the drowning thing. I've almost drowned multiple times in my life, then ironically decided to spend my high school years as a lifeguard. Go figure. Anyways, drowning happens in phases. The first is just being bad at staying afloat and not realizing it. Your brain realizes the danger, but you can still breathe, so you consciously try and stay afloat and fight. It's scary, but it's not existential scary, because your brain literally can't jump to that conclusion just yet. The second phase triggers when you fail something necessary. You might take a breath of water, or your attempt to hit the surface and not make it, or something similar, but either way two things happen here. One, conscious panic sets in. You can still think, but it's fractured, desperate. This is terrifying because it was usually here that the thought, oh shit, I could die happened. 2, there is a physical response. Water enters your lungs. CO2 builds. You begin to gasp unconsciously for more air, but often end up only sucking in more water. Stage 3, the last remnants of sanity. Gonna be honest, this phase is brief, but it sucks. It's when conscious, sane thoughts begin to slowly exit the picture. Sucking in water over and over, not getting oxygen, coupled with the conscious realization of your surroundings and circumstances and just how utterly f***ed you are. This is the worst part, for me at least. You feel everything. When people say your lungs are burning, they mean it. It's weird because you can feel your lungs filling up with water in ways that you wouldn't expect. You almost just feel more full, like you had a big meal, but that meal was lava. Stage 4 is where you lose conscious thought. It's what lifeguards call an active drowning victim. It's the shell of a body in full panic mode doing everything to survive. I was a passenger in a body. There was only terror. I didn't control my limbs, my head, my breathing. I stopped having rational thoughts. As a side note, a person in this stage will straight up drag their closest loved ones down with them. Kids, spouse, anyone. That's not your dad. That's a body trying to survive, and it will pull you down with it if it thinks it will help. Finally, stage 5 is light out. Brain loses 0-2, CO2 builds up, vision fades, body loses the ability to move. Unconsciousness. Some people say this is peaceful, but not for me, I'll tell you. My terrified ass went terrified all the way through the tunnel every time. This is what lifeguards call a passive drowning victim. They are hard to see, and time is ticking. Obviously, this is where my personal account gets irrelevant law. Humans are weird and diverse, and my experience may differ from others and even some of what was outlined in the lifeguard space, but anyways, teach your kids to swim, people. Story 5. I got a really bad sunburn once and had the devil's itch. My entire back was incredibly itchy, and not anything I did could change it. It didn't even really hurt. It was just incredibly itchy. I genuinely thought it might make me go insane. I was straight up writhing on a tent floor. I have also broken my collarbone. Breaking my collarbone and the subsequent surgery were less uncomfortable than the few hours I was constantly itchy from the sunburn. Trust, sticky all over your body is way better than itchy. I've experienced being constantly itchy, not even over all of my body, and it was the single worst physical experience of my life, worse than breaking a bone. It felt like a bunch of ants were crawling around underneath my skin, and nothing I did would make it go away. Story 6. Would you rather be completely immortal or die right now? Immortality seems cool at first glance, but knowing you will eventually experience the heat death of the universe for trillions of years is terrifying. Something a lot of people don't realize is that if you're completely immortal, humanity along with you may survive for many millions more years. When the rest of humanity goes extinct, you can look for another civilization, hopefully one roughly on par with current or past humanity. And where your knowledge, you can keep trying over and over to create civilizations. You can also learn how to create biological life and how to generate and recycle energy with 100% efficiency. You will likely come to a point where the universe's heat death won't affect you much. Story 7. Would you rather be blind or deaf? It seems like an easy choice to say deaf, since it would seem to be much less difficult to navigate the world being deaf than blind. But I once had a blind friend who was not born blind and had only become so around age 17, who told me she'd still rather be blind than deaf because being deaf sounded very lonely. I still think about that conversation sometimes. Story 8. Would you rather spend thousands of dollars and put your old dog through major surgery to maybe keep her alive a little longer, or accept that this is going to kill her and that 14 years was a good long life? Our vet yesterday. Gotta tell ya, no other wire question has made me literally sob. Story 9. Would you rather have to pay for everything in or have to use a pogo stick as your only method of transportation? This includes walking. If you want to get up off the couch to go get a bag of chips from the pantry, you have to pogo there. Story 10. When I was working as a lifeguard at a water park, my brother posed this question to me. A massively obese man dies of a heart attack at the top of the tallest slide at the park just before he's about to go down. Do you try to carry him down the 5 stories of stairs in the respectful way, or push him down the slide in the convenient way? Story 11. Would you rather eat raw chicken wings or chicken wings seasoned with bear mace? This reminds me of the time that we had a bear spray discharge in the bear spray bucket that held all the harnesses while doing fieldwork. We washed them the best we could, but not in the washing machine, so our clothes wouldn't get spicy. My harness was on my waist. I also had a new hydration pack that fell off my clip because I hadn't attached it correctly. The first time I went to drink from it, I thought it tasted bad because it was new. I barely drank any water. It took me 3 days for the water nozzle to fall off again and for me to realize that it was rubbing against my bear spray harness. 99% cayenne pepper. No wonder it tasted horrible. But yeah, chicken wings with bear spray. And bear spray is oil-based, so you need either soap or oil to get it off. Story 12. From a dream. Would you rather die right now and be remembered, or become powerful but be unremembered? I took the second option. No one even knew I existed, and yet I could remake anything by touching it and thinking about it. Visited my mom. Not only did she not know me, but every time she left the room, she forgot me again. Her house's basement was starting to collapse, so I used my power to fix it and do a bunch of other remodeling. She claimed it had always been that way. It was as if I had done nothing at all and hadn't even been there. In the dream, I visited many other people and used my power to fix things all over, but no one ever noticed, like I was a ghost. Story 13. This scenario is complex, so sorry for the wall of text. TL, DR fetish toilet or hostage toilet. I'm not sure about the toughest one, but the one that made me and my friends think the most was, every toilet you now use becomes sentient. And I mean fully sentient. It can talk, feel emotion, the whole 9 yards. There is no loophole to avoid this scenario. No matter where you are, the toilet is sentient. The question is, would you rather the toilet be a very willing participant or a very unwilling one? The willing toilet gets off on this shit literally. Every time you drop a deuce, it's an orgasmic experience for the toilet. And remember, he's sentient, so he is very vocal about how he's feeling. Nothing rocks his world like you dropping a post-Chipotle dump in his mouth. The non-willing toilet is basically a hostage. He's horrified by what you're doing to him. He goes through the entire range of emotion a typical hostage goes through. There's fear, distress, and bargaining when the deed is about to be done. He's revolted when you actually go. I mean, hell, how'd you feel if someone was forcefully shitting in your mouth? For both scenarios, we can assume that the toilet can only talk to you and other people can't hear them. This takes out the issue of going in a public place. So which would you pick? The initial instinct is for sure the willing participant, but the more I think about it, I think you'd eventually grow disgusted with them and be creeped out. Personally, I'm hoping for a Stockholm Syndrome scenario with the hostage toilet so that eventually we can come to coexist.